I've lived here for so long, and I've
Yes.
watched so many public policies become law, take effect, play out over the years, and fail, that I'm the last person who's ever going to make some sweeping claim about the efficacy of whatever idea I have. Every policy is a failed policy on some level. Nothing government does or nothing that people do is a clean kill.
Right.
It's not an unambiguous victory, ever. So yeah, of course there's always going to be an unintended consequences or a whole suite of unintended consequences, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. I mean, the Second World War was, in my opinion, was absolutely worth destroying the Nazis and pushing the Soviets back. But you know, a lot of people were killed. Tens of millions of people died. I mean, anyway, it's a really simple question: can government exist? Can it coexist with companies that are more powerful than the government itself? And the answer is no. Just as a philosophical matter, like that's not sustainable. Because power centers can't actually coexist. One must always dominate the other, just like dogs. It doesn't mean they need to be biting each other at one another's throats, but it means you can't have shared power.
So what's the answer?
Somebody's dad, okay, always. And so the question is, if you have Google, which has more power than the US government in a lot of ways, that's not sustainable. You need to break up Google tonight, today, this afternoon. It's 12:05. How about by 12:15? Mm-hmm. That's what I would do.
So what's the entry point for that?
Day one.
Is it antitrust?
Antitrust, sure.
Okay.
They've got a 90% monopoly on search, the portal through which all human information flows. So, like, that's not a small, it's the most powerful company in the history of the world. So here's a really simple way to explain it to politicians who only care about electoral success. That's how they're wired. I'm not attacking them. They're not philosophers, none of them.
Right.
Their job is to win elections. That's what they care about.
Right. So why would their voters go for this?
It's really simple. You're not going to get a Republican president elected ever until Google is restrained, period. Because Google has the power to determine presidential outcomes, and they will use it. And we know this because we have them on the record, and the Daily Caller's broken a bunch of the stories. We've broken a few too on my show. They are a political organization that seeks specific political ends. They've tried to do it before. We also know, because there's a lot of research on this, that manipulating search results in Google and on other social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, for example, affects vote tallies, affects outcomes. So if you were to monkey with the algorithm, which is a black box and we have no idea what's in it, we have no idea what the criteria are for search, you can get someone elected or someone defeated. You just move down some results, elevate other results, and that has a tangible effect on who wins. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is, if you're Donald Trump, you're not getting reelected unless you restrain Google. You are not getting reelected unless you restrain Google. And I'm not in charge of anything other than 1 hour of TV on Fox News. That's my only job. So I have no power to do anything other than say that out loud. I don't know if anyone's listening, but it's true. I bet my house on it. Trump will not get reelected unless he gets Google under control. And that doesn't mean controlling Google. It means getting them under control. It means making certain that they are not putting the world's heaviest thumb on the world's most delicate scale.
Mm-hmm. So as of today, since you brought it up, do you think that Donald Trump does get reelected in 2020?
Not with Google. No, I don't. Because look, the most powerful sector of our society is the tech sector. I mean, there's really no kind of comparison to that. What people think is determined by what they see and read. And what they see and read is wholly determined, with the exception of cable news, by a handful of tech companies, all of whom are politically active against Trump, and they mean it. It's not just they have a preference for Bob Dole over Bill Clinton, do you know what I mean? Or George W. Bush over John Kerry, or vice versa, or whatever. No. They see him as an existential threat to their lives. They really have been convinced, they're hysterical, and they have been convinced that if Trump gets reelected, he will kill them in some way.
So the tape, for instance, of Google being horrified at the conclusion of the 2016 election, mm-hmm. and its own employees being in a state of shock and sadness, was to you a warning sign that they will not let that happen again?
They won't let it happen. I mean, so what do we know about Google? It's the most powerful company in the history of the world. There's nothing that even rivals it for that title. And it has not just animus, they're hysterical about it. Like, they feel deeply personally threatened by Donald Trump. Now, I would argue that's insane. Trump is a threat really to nobody. Trump hasn't done very much and hasn't shown an ability to actually change very much. and that's distressing to me, another conversation. But the point is, it doesn't matter whether they're right or wrong, that's how they feel, and they have the power to change it. They have the power to weigh in a profound way. It's totally unregulated.
Yes.
And it's completely opaque. We have no idea what they're doing, and we have no way of knowing what they're doing. And once again, this is a threat not simply to Trump, but it's a threat to the legitimacy of the United States government. And because you have this weird combination of the left, which is being funded by the tech companies and senses in the way that I described earlier on an animal level, that they're allies in the struggle for whatever they're struggling for, power, they're not going to do anything about it. And because Republicans in the Congress and in the White House, honestly, are so enthralled to this like ludicrous understanding of the free market, this childlike and childish understanding of markets, they're not doing anything about it either. They're restrained by their own dumb bumper sticker-based preconceptions from 30 years ago. This isn't the free, there's nothing free about this market. A monopoly is not a free market. It's the antithesis of a free market. And in fact, we have an entire regulatory structure designed to prevent monopolies so that we can maintain a free market.
But actually, now we have a government that incentivizes those very
Of
companies
course we do.
to become monopolies.
And by the way, this is not just taking place in tech. It's taking place in a lot of other sectors. Now, I would argue that this is a self-correcting system in a bad way because businesses have become so concentrated in a bunch of different areas that it's a massive threat to people, and that you will have a left-wing populist reaction against this. You're already seeing it. AOC, I mean, she's an idiot, but, I mean, clearly an idiot. However, she gets this. She's understands
channeling
this.
a sentiment, not
She
logic.
channels a sentiment. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And she's absolutely right. And I've complimented her repeatedly on my show. And same with Elizabeth Warren. I mean, I wouldn't vote for Elizabeth Warren, you know. They are channeling, exactly as you said, a deep and widespread sentiment on the left that we need to do something about this. This is bad. So I guess I would say the system will self-correct in the worst possible way. What you're going to get is some, you know, Cesar Chavez knockoff, hopefully much more moderate, but still, who's going to take power in this country and really start hurting these companies. So it's not in the interest of the companies to behave like this at all. It really isn't.
Right.
The measure of a person's wisdom is how he behaves in victory. This is always the rule. It's when you win, how do you behave? So all of a sudden you're Google, you take over everything, right? Be magnanimous about it. You know, restrain yourself a little bit. Don't be a pig at the trough. Don't seek more power. Don't ally with the government of China over the government of the United States. Like, not only is that impossible to defend morally, it's also really dumb. You're going to get hurt for that. Don't do that. Don't be France after World War I. Where you're like, okay, well, I guess we won, and now we're going to destroy Germany. It's like, no, you already beat them. Pull back a little bit, France. If you rub it in their noses too much, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think happened? So don't do that. And these companies are not, because they're driven, I mean, it's very complicated, but they're driven by shareholder demands for growth. But they should be pulling back a little bit and putting a little bit more into the country that made them possible, or else they're going to get destroyed.
Now, let me ask you a shallow political question then. Move away from the depths, because I can barely handle them.
Oh, very shallow man.
Democrats, can you handicap them? Is there anybody who the president should consider a formidable threat, in your view?
You know, I don't know. It's hard to see. I mean, clearly Kamala Harris is the choice of whatever Democratic establishment still exists.
Yep.
The Hillary people. She's just so mediocre that, and I know she's trying to be like, well, I'm black or whatever. I'm a diversity person. You know, okay. You're just mediocre. She's not interesting. She is Hillary. I just don't see Democratic voters settling for that. I mean, what do I know? I'm not a Democrat.
I mean, she's also not, like, personality-wise, she's not the lightning in a bottle that Barack Obama was.
Barack Obama was a really unusual candidate, really, and I knew Obama when he was running, and I was super impressed, and I remain, and I think Obama probably hurt America more than any president, so I'm not pro-Obama, to put it mildly. However, I've always been impressed by Obama. I'm impressed by Obama to this day. That guy was an amazing communicator and had a remarkable self-control. There's no one like him. So
what about Beto? I mean, Beto O'Rourke has this kind of sort of, it's almost like a pale comparison of Obama, but it's the kind of thing that electrifies crowds, but there's no content, there's no substance behind what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, my sense of Beto is there is definitely something. I mean, he looks exactly like Bobby Kennedy, so like for the old people, that's thrilling, I guess. But there is something there. I mean, he's got a kind of fearlessness that is appealing for sure. I mean, I've made a ton of fun of Beto because it's fun to make fun of him.
Yes.
But there's something pretty ballsy about just like, I don't care. I'm just putting my banal online journal. He's not a genius. He's kind of dumb. But there's something still sort of brave about putting that out there. I mean,
right.
I think candidates like Beto do well. I guess that's what I would say about Beto. I think Beto himself, pretty tough sell for the party that's telling you white men are bad to nominate a rich white guy. I mean, it's just the dissonance is a little maybe too much. Who knows if it's too much? But I think he's interesting anyway. I think AOC is really interesting. I'm so put off. I mean, she's not a candidate. She's too young, but she's a lot of authority in that party. I'm really put off by her surfeit of self-esteem. I've never seen anyone who was so confident while being so dumb at the same time. I mean, it's nauseating, but it's interesting. But I still think she's interesting qualities, and I think she's very brave, and I admire that in her.
Now, among the Democrats, are there people you think...
Like, gotta say, like Cory Booker.
Yeah.
It's like, please, or Joe Biden. I mean, I know them both. I'm not attacking them, but like Kirsten Gillibrand or whatever she's calling herself now. I don't think it's her real name, but whatever she calls herself, like, it's not even really. I mean, I make fun of her because I can't control myself, but it's not even worth bothering.
Well, let me run down three candidates that I'm interested in your opinion on. Is to what extent do you think that they're actually principled, or you think that they're hypocrites? And they are Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Tulsi Gabbard.
Well, it's funny. Those are the three I've thought about the most. So I think all three of them are kind of superior in a way. Mm-hmm. Elizabeth Warren fell into the well, I mean, she clearly was gaming the affirmative action system and got caught. So that's embarrassing. She's not the only one who's done that. But Elizabeth Warren is more serious as a person than I have given her credit for most of the time, although I have given her credit for it, and then most Republicans understand. Elizabeth Warren wrote one of my favorite books, actually, called The Two-Income Trap, and she wrote it about 10 years ago with her daughter, and she argued for what I believe, which is a society where it's possible to sustain a family on one income. So like you could actually raise your own kids. And she rejects, as I do vehemently, the idea that women have a moral obligation to serve global capitalism above raising their own children. That's disgusting. It's a lie. And I know that they tell us that because it benefits them, but like, you're not obligated to join the workforce, because what?
Right.
To go make widgets or do LBOs or anyway. So Elizabeth Warren's kind of traditional populist left economics, I don't like all of it, but I find it interesting. Some of it I love. But she's old and she doesn't get identity politics, and so she does this sort of dopey I'm an American Indian bullshit, which discredits her. But
I also wonder if she's abandoned her economic principles because now she's advocating for having the government pay for childcare,
which is the opposite of what she said before. I mean,
which would seem like it would perpetuate the very two-income
households.
Of course,
really? So we need to. So you can fulfill your moral obligation to work for some sad company instead of raise your own children?
Right.
Like, that's what we're telling young women. And as the father of 3 daughters, I'm enraged by that. You have no obligation to any company in this or any other country. Mm-hmm. If you want to raise your own kids, you should be able to. That's the highest level of commitment, of sacrifice, and of satisfaction.
It's a vocation.
It's the most beautiful thing there is. Are you kidding? Work at some freaking investment bank is better than raising your own kids?
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, look, here's the thing is Democrats, particularly those over 50, like Warren, are terrified. They don't know what's going on. They see this, like, bizarre, demented 29-year-old bartender, like, running the party. They don't know what to do.
So then we get people like Bernie Sanders who are adopting AOC's talking points, like talking about the climate and climate change is an urgent threat.
So dumb.
He's abandoned his views on immigration. He once thought unrestrained immigration was a problem.
There's no evidence that we can mitigate the climate threat. That's just like, it's insane, actually. It's just a pure power grab.